Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Good evening, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Glad you're here. And while you're in chat, be respectful of families, of mods, and each other. And what will happen is, of course, we'll have a short presentation. And after that presentation, and during the presentation, of course, if you have any questions about any of the information or anything you'd like to inquire about, just put it in chat. Mrs. Steve here will make note of it, and after the presentation, we'll answer them. All right.
You ready?
I am ready. We're going to be discussing several different cases. It's a coffee and clues night, and so we're going to be looking at one of them, of course, is the Stephen Smith case in South Carolina, and which his death has been ruled everything from a traffic accident to a homicide, and his body had to be exhumed for a second autopsy. And recently, I think the last day or so, there was another news interview that I found extremely interesting, and decided I wanted to get that information out, and we discuss it and keep this information in the news for the fact it's important that we find justice for all the cases we're covering tonight, and Stephen Smith, of course, is one of them, because his mother, Sandy, has fought for him for many, many years, and so they deserve answer, and so we're going to try to keep it in the news, and we'll talk a little bit about the interview that the attorney Eric Bland had on, I think it was Court TV. If you get a chance, type it in, watch it. It's a very interesting interview, and pay special attention to the words used. This attorney has backed away from certain information that previous to the autopsy and previous to everything that we now know, that they're using some strange terms, and of what the family really wants, and justice is part of it. But that he mentioned that upon speaking with law enforcement, and that he believes a grand jury has been impaneled, and he has information that 5 or 6 people have knowledge or information about this. This is what he has advised, and that he was advised of, which is extremely interesting. Who are these 5 or 6 people, and how do they have that knowledge, and why have they not come forward in all this time? And there's going to be certain reasons, and the answers to those reasons may be criminal, or it may be something, relations of family members, and it was an accident or something, because, like I said, through the words he's used, and that Sandy only wants answers, and it may or may not be a criminal act. It may be that they were just doing something, and that certain things occurred that resulted in the death of Stephen Smith. And when you look at that and you see that, you start to think, what has changed? What information's out there? But he also does mention that if they were doing certain things for certain reasons, that there could be a possibility that it's still criminal. But that really the one thing that Sandy wants is just answers, and she deserves them, absolutely. That's all, and the family gets to make those choices of where it goes after that, or my opinion, if that's all she wanted. And of course, if it's criminal activity, of course, you'll want prosecution. But then again, anything other than that, she gets to make a lot of choices. But he said that of something specific that a little bit different than what we had previous knowledge of is that the skull only had skull fractures, and that there were no indentations, such as something that would happen with skull fractures if you strike someone with a any type of hard pipe, ball bat, flashlight. It will indent the skull. I've seen it, been there, and you can see it. I mean, it will almost take on the exact curvature of whatever the instrument or weapon that was used to strike, and fracture the skull if enough force is applied. And he was talking about that there was no indentation; it was just skull fractures all over. And when you watch the video, you'll see him as he motions about the skull, and it was extremely interesting. He said, of course, the autopsy has been given to SLED, and so they have a copy. And of course, he's not going to be releasing any of the information at this time, but at some point, the grand jury absolutely will have that. And do I think it's moving along? Absolutely. Do I think we'll probably have an answer in the next few months? Absolutely. Or at least I hope that's the case. But we need to, like I said, keep supporting this family in any shape, form, or fashion that we can. And that he said that the expert findings likely, and he in this interview he mentions that a lot of people thought, and it was always discussed, possibly that Stephen met some type of fate somewhere else and was transported there and dumped. But he said that the expert findings likely will find that Stephen died there on the road at the location he was found, which is extremely interesting. And of course, we have a lot of blood that's located there in the roadway, and it does indicate that that would be the most likely place that he would have died. So I found it very interesting, and like I said, I do believe from listening to him speak and him being involved as much as he is and being the spokesperson basically for what is going on there, that we should give him a lot of weight to the words that he says. All righty. Then, of course, we have another issue with this case where Sandy, in this same interview on Court TV, they're talking about Randy Murdaugh and the Murdaugh family. Of course, we know about Alec, and which brought up and brought attention to the Smith case for the fact that she mentions in here that there was something at the residence that focused law enforcement back on the death of Stephen. What that is, I have no idea. And then, of course, she has always, during this course of action, even in letters written and everything, has mentioned this Murdaugh family. And so, and she says that the morning of the death discovery, that one of the two people that were there that morning was Randy. And then on the next day, when another investigator was out there, he was there again. And she paid special attention to that. Now, when there was an interview of Randy, and Randy said that he was only there one time, which I'll have to get settled out, that if he was there any other time, I mean, you're going to have either dash cams, body cams, you're going to have the officers themselves and identifying people that's in the crowd or whoever's there on scene. And we'll find out if it's true. And because his line of work, he is an attorney. And in his line of work, you can go look at his homepage, and it talks about he's been practicing law, handling injury and death cases. And that's what you would expect anyone that's in this line of work. Now, there's certain ethics that they have to follow, and they're not supposed to ambulance chase or look for cases and things. And there's some big law terms that they use. But as far as the ethics part of it, and but there's part of it is that Stephen's father may have asked or did ask him to look into it. And of course, um, there was the rumors, and I think even I can't remember exactly who said that he had offered to represent the family at no charge. Now, Eric Bland, he he had a great statement about that. You know, what attorney that's in the business of working injury and death cases works for free, and that's true. So that's a good point. And I, as I age, I find that there's more and more attorneys I agree with sometimes, and I don't know if it's the attorneys changing their opinions or I'm changing mine. But he did have a great point when he made that observation, and I agree that you're talking about a family law firm that is absolutely one of the largest ones in the state and in that region is the absolute go-to injury and death, wrongful death firms. But and so we'll just have to see where it goes and how far it goes. And will he be, if he was on the scene and saw anything, I would expect that he would probably, everyone that was on that scene, I would expect if a grand jury is impaneled, they all had to go. I can't see that a grand jury or a prosecutor would miss the opportunity to find out who's there, when they were there, why they were there, and how they gained knowledge of the of Stephen's death, because that's extremely important that we get it in the right context. And now I know, of course, Stephen's father is no longer alive, but everyone that is, we should be able to speak to and find out and put it in the proper context. All right. And so if you have any information on the Stephen Smith case, absolutely make sure, no matter how, if you're unsure that law enforcement has it and you've never heard it, whatever the information you haven't heard it out there in mainstream, or you have it firsthand or whatever, make sure that law enforcement has that information. And this is the number for the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. So call it in those tips and make sure that we can get justice, whatever that justice, and get answers for Sandy. All right. Another case we're going to be looking at, of course, is the Idaho homicides of Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Jana. If you have any information on this case, also make sure that information is passed on to law enforcement so that we can find justice, because we have a defendant in jail, Kohlberger, who is accused of these crimes, and we have a lot of information from the probable cause affidavits, arrest warrants, search warrants, and everything showing how the prosecution and how the state believe he's involved and is responsible. And some of the information that came out recently and I was happy with just knowing that the DNA link was through the father, and that the information showed that the offender who left if Kohlberger is the offender and he left that sheath at the scene and his DNA profile was on that sheath, that the father of whoever left that DNA profile on that sheath, he would be the father of the offender that committed these crimes. And I was happy with those numbers. And I knew at some point that we would get the actual DNA profile match. And it's come back, and it was with a remarkable number of what it was. And I never, this number is past any comprehension I would ever understand. But it says that after they ran analysis of the cheek swab obtained directly from Kohlberger, comparison revealed an overwhelming statistical match. Specifically, the STR profile is at least 5.37 octillion times more likely. So I went in there and looked up what is octillion and how would you even write out octillion. And It's a bunch of zeros. And so that from the general population that individually randomly selected, this is what it is, 5.37 octillion. And when you go to the chart of what octillion is, there's supposed to be 27 zeros in it for whatever reason. And I saw where some people were saying that it's 8 groups of 3, and so I don't know if it's the next set over is the octillion. So I don't know, but on this chart, but of course, anything on the internet may be off, and so you have to see what it is. But they say there's 27 zeros in octillion, which is amazing. And I thought I looked at one thing of how many atoms or something was in the human body. And it's in octillions also. Found that just when I was looking up octillions, one of those random things popped up, and I thought that was amazing. And then, of course, we've got our other case that we can discuss tonight, that if anyone has any questions or anything, is on Richard Allen. Everybody's been waiting on the 100 and plus pages or files that are going to be released, and they were supposed to be released this week. And of course, we got notice that that's going to be delayed until next week. And I don't know if it's due to redactions or certain information and other files that may be released. I'm hoping. And of course, everyone knows what's my big, what I really want to be released. And I know there's going to be some of this information they release is going to absolutely just be nothing but motions and typical stuff. But I really would like to see if they would release any of the probable cause affidavits and for the search warrant of Richard Allen's house and also for his vehicle. And then, but what I would want even more than that, if I had a choice between the probable cause affidavit or the return of the search warrant, and the return of the search warrant is that when you execute a search warrant, you have to go back to the court and tell the court exactly what you seized with the power that the court gave you to go in there to that individual's residence and what you requested to look for. And if you found, you were able to seize. And I want to see what they were able to seize. That's my top number one thing that I would really like to have because that's going to tell us what evidence possibilities. Is it blood-stained clothing? Is it weapons? Is it additional firearms? Is it ammunition? Anything and everything that could be in there. And I expect that law enforcement, when they conducted this search warrant, the parallels between this search warrant and almost all search warrants are going to be very similar to what Logan search warrant was that was conducted on the Logan property. That was or written by the FBI, because it was pretty well stated exactly, and it was very broad of everything they wanted from that house. Because if you go back and read it and look at it and you look around your house, you'll see that they could just about take anything and everything from the fibers, animal hair, your everything, cameras, digital, anything, computers. They could take everything in your house basically off that first search warrant for the Logan, and I expect that this one would be very similar too. But and then of course I don't know when the ballistic suppression hearing will be. Has been postponed, but I don't know when it will be. But I'm looking forward to that. For the bullet is huge, and that bullet's going to play a large part as we proceed forward with the trial and through the hearings. But we've got until January the 8th, 2024, before they say that this the jury selection will start. I don't, I would be surprised if they can get everything together by January the 8th. I think it will probably be longer, but who knows? And hopefully that Richard Allen is able to decide what his steps and what direction he wants to go. I have certain that I would absolutely love that since he's doing some confessing, and it's been supported by both the prosecutor says that he has confessed, and his Houghton facility, and also his own attorneys also say that he has confessed. and but they put a different spin on why, due to his mental state. But we're going to find out, and if that's true. And I expect that if he's confessed to any of the state employees or anyone that has any capacity of authority within the jail system or the state system, that he probably has confessed to some other inmates and things also. And we'll just have to see. And hopefully he'll continue that trend, and we may have a quick answer, and I'm hoping that will be the case. All righty. With that being said, we got any questions?
You got a couple here. Let me write this down so I know where I'm at. All right. And from Deb, beat around the head, multiple blows on the road where he was unalived.
That's from the attorney describing it, that whatever fractured his skull did not leave indentations. And so there's a lot of different ways that skull fractures can occur. And they can be everything from punches, bone on bone. It can be from a large flat surface, such as a road surface. If someone took someone and repeatedly slammed their skull onto the road surface, you could have fractures from that, because it's different parts of the skull. Of course, you can get fractures from one impact, but they'll radiate out from one impact. And but the way he was describing that there was multiple fractures, and you know, I got in a close quarter encounter one time, and I fractured a individual with multiple fractures just from one blow. And so you can have multiple fractures from one impact. So that can occur. So I just don't know which way. Now, when you hear the mother describe the injuries, that they're on the back of the head and on the front of the head, that would show that more than likely it's multiple impacts. And we'll just have to see which way it is.
Let's see here. And Miranda, how would he otherwise get a skull fracture?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, anything from a fight, something could have been thrown at him, and it might not have left that, you know, indication of what it was. Because, like I said, if you hit someone with a ball bat or a pipe or flashlight or something, it will absolutely make almost a reverse impose of what type of instrument and how big it is into the skull fractures. And the bones will hold that configuration, and you can see it. I've seen x-rays of them.
Okay. And Kamala, this is so interesting. Is Randy another AM?
You know, I don't think so, but it's been mentioned that Alec was there also, and so did they go there together as a team? It's possible, and but I'm sure that he's been interviewed, and if the grand jury's there, I'm sure the grand jury, in my own opinion, it makes sense that they would talk to him, see what he's seen, for the fact that, law enforcement are trained observers. But let me tell you, attorneys are trained observers too. Everything they do and how they analyze and they look at things, CSI, absolutely, through their training, they learn what to look for. Attorneys, if I had a choice of people I would want to look at a crime scene and see what they see, of course, you have your law enforcement officers that are trained, you got your CSI guys, but attorneys, some of them are pretty good at that, for the fact that they're looking for key details that a lot of people might overlook. But attorneys want to be able to have that Perry Mason moment, and they really are. I've been amazed at some time in court sitting there, and hear an attorney ask something, and I thought, that's brilliant. I wish I had thought of that. And they were absolutely correct to even be approaching and looking at it from that angle. So I'm glad he went there. Whatever attorneys went there, even if it's Alec, it would be absolutely beneficial to law enforcement and everyone to talk to him if they'll talk.
All right. And Deb, Mr. Steve, was pick taken of the sheath where it was found? And where was it found?
I would, if the crime scene technicians follow the proper procedures and protocols of their training, of course, they document everything. Of course, when they get there, you're going to have multiple of formats that will document that crime scene. And of course, first thing that when CSI gets there, law enforcement gets there, they go in and they take a visual look at and analyze and see how to approach and what evidence they can see. And then they start following up. Did they bring in the and do and make video recordings of the crime scene? I would absolutely believe so. You're going to have the body cams of the first responding officers that went in and checked for signs of life. And is there anything that we can do to possibly save life? And so you're going to have those cameras that are there. And then, of course, you'll have the CSI teams that will come in and document and what level of video did they use and how much did they use of it. Don't know, but I would. And then after the video is done, you'll have that. Okay, we're going to start securing and start creating our evidence logs. And part of the procedures at the crime scene is you photograph and you bag and tag it, and you seal it, and you document it through every process. And so, yes, wherever it was found, it will be photographed. And if not, it is a huge failure.
Okay. And from Deb, anything else with his DNA in the house?
This is not that we know of, but my personal opinion is that there is a transfer of DNA of him in that house. Now, if they found it or not, I do not know. But going into a residence and having 4 violent encounters, and possibly at least one of them of the victims fighting back, and even if they didn't fight back, while you're doing and committing this violent act, there's a lot of things that get that can fall from one and be transferred from one surface to another. And so I believe that his DNA is there. But have they found it? And when will they find it if they haven't found it already? But yes, I'm almost absolutely 100% confident that if Koberger is a responsible party, his DNA is in that house. And hopefully they found it and they just got it loaded up, waiting for the proper moment to let the world know.
And Dave, Steve, do you think it's strange that they haven't released the info about the search warrant yet in the Delphi case?
No, I like I said, it's on my wish list, and I'm hoping it's in these docs, but it may not be. Um, and is it necessary for them to do? They don't owe us anything, but if they would, I'd be most appreciative if they would release that. But no, there's nothing strange about it right now, and it's just that they sealed everything. And not all cases everything gets sealed. I mean, we can look at the Koberger case with Idaho. Those 4 we have search warrants, and we have items seized. And that's exactly what I want on this case. But every state's different. And when will they? I mean, at some point it will be released. But I'm hoping it's next week now.
All right. And from Deb, Mr. Steve, did he catfish the girls?
someone sent me I think it might have been in comments or it was email, that very question. How did he know they were going to be there? And if it wasn't a random act, uh, and uh, and there's it could be anything from the simple, like you said, that at least one of the girls had been catfished by Anthony Shots. Did he see that? Did he see an opportunity through the Anthony Shots? Was it out there? Was it able to be viewed by, and were people talking about um, that, other friends, or was it any part of the social media where other people could see this? Um, and did he take an opportunity of knowing that they were going there to meet someone, or did he catfish them himself? That he saw, we in law enforcement, we often see that when people are scammed out of money, they're scammed multiple times, and it's almost like there's a network of people out there that victimize these victims. Once they find someone, it gets out. I don't know how all it gets out there through the network, but other scammers will come in and victimize them time and time again. And is that something that possibly could have happened to Libby and Abby? Yes. And or was it due to their social media post, or was it just a random encounter? I really don't know yet, but it's possible that he catfished them. Absolutely.
And Kamala gets the first blue light tonight.
Thank you for your support, Kamal. That means a lot to us. Going to be using it in just about what 3 weeks,
2.5,
2.5,
something like that. Okay, and from Molly at True Crime Web, any idea on when the documents are supposed to be released? Do you think attorneys are so focused on the mental health cause they've got no other defense?
I saw someone sent me something today, and I thank you for sending that to me. And about that the court had ordered that the state was to release any mental health records that they had about Richard Allen. There was a motion for that, and so there was. But I thank you for putting that out there. But hopefully, like I said, they, for whatever reason, 1 week was not enough for the court to review and see what was within those documents to be released. And so they postponed it till next week. And hopefully next week will be it. Could it be longer? We are at the mercy of the courts. And we'll just have to see exactly when it will be released. But the sooner the better for me. But on the second part, on the mental health, because they've got no other defense, it does seem, you're exactly right, that it does appear that they're looking at the mental health, because on the confessions, the attorneys, when they recognized that those confessions were made, that they talked about his mental health decline. So it does appear that they will be bringing that in. How far can they take it with the courts? I don't know.
Okay. And where the wind blows, who has a skull fracture? That would be Mr. Smith.
Stephen Smith has the skull fractured. And we've always have heard that he had multiple fractures, and it has been theories out there about, from ball bats to anything, to mirrors on vehicles, and we just don't know what caused his skull fractures. But Stephen Smith is one we're talking about with a skull fracture.
All right, and Donna, Mr. Steve, kids nowadays get on top of autos and trucks while going down the road and fall. I've seen on videos. Could that might be what happened?
That's an interesting theory. And when I was young, we had an individual in school. I think back then they called it surfing. Of course, I don't know if that's what the term is now. There's all kind of new language out there, but we had someone that did that, and actually they had some skull fractures. But that is a good point, and that is a possibility. But I don't know why you would run out of gas and then start surfing. But it's possible. Or you meet somebody and just start surfing. I don't know.
All right. And Ishi, I hope I didn't butcher that. If I did, I apologize. Will they ever release the information found leading to the reopening of the case?
Well, it pretty well, in my opinion, it all circled around that the reason they did it was that there was such public awareness from all the YouTube creators and the public itself, and the family went out there and said, and they pushed, and finally they said the courts said if you you can exhume the body, and when the family said that we need money, they absolutely were overwhelmed with the generosity of the community, and they were able to do that, and they had the funding for a lot of private investigation, plus the autopsy and exhumation of his body, and it was through the public pressures that got us there. And then once the state realized and saw the momentum behind this, in my personal opinion, that's when SLED stepped forward and said, "We agree. It's a homicide. We reclassify it." And this is where we're at now from that. So public pressure had a tremendous amount of impact on this case, in my opinion.
All right. And Molly at True Crime Web in Delphi, did you go into the gravel pit by the cemetery? Any thoughts on how that may have caused the muddy, bloody guy sighting? I'd never heard of the gravel pit.
Well, the gravel pit is not really a gravel pit. In years gone by, the area, from my understanding, was mined out, and it was where gravel was taken from, and it's what caused some of the terrain there. That's from my understanding. So in the location of where they were found down there, when you first cross that creek and get on that little plateau there, in that area is that muddy bank, and that's where I assumed, when I was doing some of the research on it, that they taught and called that the gravel pit. And so it's wooded. It's woodland now. It's at the foot. It's where the Libby and Abby's bodies were found, on that lower plateau. And the mining properties is very similar. I mean, extremely rough terrain in there. Now, there are some gentle sloping areas, but not gentle sloping. They're pretty abrupt. But but there are some that you just about have to have a ladder to come up. And because I was climbing from tree to tree roots at the base where they hit the soil to get up out of one section of it, and I couldn't have gotten out of it if I hadn't used those trees. But it's just that area in years gone by that it was a gravel pit.
Okay. And YT Grandma Maribel.
Mods, thank you all for making this channel run smoothly, and thank you, Stephen. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're right. Couldn't do it without my mods.
Yeah, we have absolutely unbelievable mods, and community.
Absolutely. We's got the best. All right. And Miss Kamala. Mr. Steve, any blue paint chips in Stephen's autopsy? I'm remembering the blue signs along the road.
Yes, and that was always that there was some type, and there is from some of the documentations we saw early on, that there is blue paint chips that was noted by the lab work, and and they were documented that they could come from state signs and otherwise. And what are those blue paint chips, and what part did they play, and how did they get transferred? Are those blue paint chips? And of course, law enforcement would look in the vehicle and in Stephen's vehicle and see that are there other blue paint chips in that vehicle. And if there's not, then of course he would have more than likely got those after he was out of that vehicle. But if there's blue paint chips in his car, if there's blue paint chips in his closet, then of course the blue paint chips have nothing to do with this crime. But if they're not in these other environments, in his closet, at his school, in his car, but only on his persons after he's found deceased, then we have to give the blue paint chips a lot of value.
All right, so I've got 2 questions back to back. So don't answer the first one because there's a clarification on the second.
Okay.
Okay. So Sassy Cat says, Mrs. Steve, I asked on a comment video if Steve knew how the girls would be at the bridge. Don't answer. Sassy Cat, Mrs. Steve, I mean how RA knew the girls would be there.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
So how did he know they'd be there?
Well, like I said, either it was he had catfished them, or social media, or it's a random encounter, or any of the other, there's all kind of possibilities of why it was and how it occurred. But regardless, when if Richard Allen, if he's the offender, and I have, in my personal opinion, due to his bullet being found at the crime scene and all of that, he went there prepared. He had something that could control him. We have an individual that went, and we have audio of an individual that tells them down the hill in a very calm voice. And then the next day we find 2 victims, and we see after that crime was committed, an individual that's able to go back into town and work and see the family and see all these other individuals speak to law enforcement as if nothing occurred, nothing happened, and speak to law enforcement that I'm a witness, I was there, but I didn't see anything, and make it stick for almost 6 years. So how did he know they were there? I don't know the right answer. I'm hoping that we find that out soon. And was he monitoring their social media posts? Did he catfish them? Had he been involved in, had he seen the Libby and Abby on the trails before, because it's been rumored that he often walked the trails? Did he know what their schedules usually were, although this is a special day? But did he know and make the assumption that, oh, school's out today, and so I can go to the trails? And what triggered him to do that? But there's a lot of ways that when you look at these offenders, and they know, where whatever they're looking for, these offenders, these psychopaths, there's been studies done on them that they understand how to target victims, and they may see a victim a month before an actual crime committed, or it may be a year before. You got to look at BTK and all his people that he had on certain projects and things. And but at what point, and did he at some point cross their path, or was it a last moment judgment that from the what I call victim number 4, saw him on the platform? Was she targeted at some point, and as Richard Allen met Libby and Abby and decided, oh, I'm going to switch over? We really don't know, but hopefully we will know.
And Smoking Tea 17, Steve, I saw the podcast of you saying ammo was a good gift. I just got my first
Smith & Wesson 9. They last night they was asking about what I got for Father's Day, and I told them just like what do you get the man that has everything? It's same as what you get the woman that has everything: ammunition.
I have gotten so much of that. I've gotten so many, can I say the G word, guns? What else have I got other than plastic flowers? I need to pull those plastic flowers out to show y'all.
I'll never
I
live
still
down.
have those flowers.
I'll never live down the plastic flowers.
What else have I gotten? I've gotten
Wheelbarrow, road scrapes.
Oh yeah, I got a road scrape. Now it was a god awful color though. He could have at least matched the tractor. It would have been so much better if it had matched. But anyway, okay.
She complained about the road, so I bought her a road scrape.
And it didn't match my tractor. All right, and CJK. Since Alan passed by other females, including young teens, but chose Abby and Libby, tells me he targeted one or both. How long were one or both a target?
Well, and targeting can occur as a random crime of opportunity. And how long had he spent there on that trail? Of course, in his narrative, there's a timeline that he puts himself out there. And, when he first got there and where he met those three females was very risky. You got a highway, you got multiple vehicles, you have a parking lot. The Freedom Bridge area is not a place that you would expect. That you're probably safer there than anywhere for the fact that people park and come and go at that area. At the end of the trail across that bridge, and when you get to there, it's isolated. Although once you cross the bridge, there's homes on the other side, and it's still high risk. Everything about what happened to Libby and Abby that day and that time period is absolutely high risk. You would not expect in broad daylight, middle of the day, with people on the trails, that an individual would take those risks. But we know that an individual did, and that two innocent children lost their life, and that's sad. And but he had, like I said, at some point, how long had he targeted them? Had he seen them on the trails before? And Abby only lived a short distance from his home, and did he know that? And had he been to her house possibly before at other times? Who knows? When you're dealing with this type of individual, because, like I said, he is a dangerous individual.
And Dave, the answer is yes. You've got some folks needing an explanation on plastic flowers.
One time I was in, it was our anniversary, and I was in a fishing tournament, and I had to make a choice of fresh flowers or plastic flowers because I wasn't going to get home until after midnight, and I didn't want the stores to be closed, and I couldn't buy flowers for our anniversary. And so I did what any reasonable individual would do, buy something that wouldn't perish. And they've lasted now.
30 years?
Yes, about 30 years.
About 30 years?
She brings them out every now and then.
Mm-hmm. I'm just checking. All right.
I'm a romantic.
Yeah. Okay. 63 clocks at True Crime Web. Steve, I still remember the reenactment you did for the Murdaugh case. It was exceptional and turned out to be spot on. You know what you're talking about, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And working, and there's certain things that once you have the training, you understand angles and you understand blood spatter and trajectories. And I'm working on a case right now. It's very similar to that I just cleaned out the foyer.
But I got something else in the mail today.
Oh yeah. And I just unpacked and assembled it. Waffles has got a new friend.
He sure does. He sure does. Tall friend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And from Nan, Steve, do you know if the gun was a long gun or a pistol of some kind?
It was if you're talking about the with Abby and Libby, it was a pistol.
Okay. And let's go catch up.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Appreciate y'all and your support. The views, give it a thumbs up. share it, and we appreciate all that, guys. All your support in any shape, form, or fashion. Appreciate it.
So from Ann, is she telling on you? Mrs. Steve, do you agree that ammunition is the ideal gift? Ask Mr. Steve about last night's morning report. What did I miss now?
About we discussed about what do you get a woman that has everything, and I said ammunition, just like what you get a man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is it the ideal gift? But it's like this. As much as he goes through, it never hurts to have an extra box or two. Let me just say that. Let me just say that.
Thanks, chat.
I love y'all. CJK question. Some are saying the spent shell was planted as it may not have been found when girls were found. I saw leaves, sticks, etc. in the area and lots of people that day. So to me, it's not a biggie. Thoughts?
You're exactly right. And now we'll bring up the point that like other people went there, and it depends the timeline of when that bullet was found. For the fact it gives an out, because we're looking at 6 years. Are they going to throw in there at some point, and from the time of the crime, that okay, if this bullet was found when the crime scene was taped off, then of course Richard Allen did not have access to be able to drop that bullet. If it was found 3 days later or a week later after the crime scene has been removed, and did Richard Allen have the opportunity, the ability to visit just out of curiosity and lost the bullet there? Is that what they will claim? Absolutely. Those defense attorneys, they know all the tricks, and they will absolutely come up with something like that. And but if it was found while law enforcement had it secured, it's one thing. If it's found after law enforcement gave up security and then found it later, we're going to have issues.
All right. And let me have that one. And Dreamscape question. What do you think about the bullet at the crime scene? Oh, well, that was kind of what you just said.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge if it was found while it was under the security of law enforcement.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see here. All right. And you are good.
I'm good. All right, guys.
Whoop. Molly slid one in on you. At True Crime Web, is it true that Ellie got a 40 cal handgun from the neighbor's house, not RL, and it didn't match the bullet? And this was in 2017. So they know it matches RA's gun.
I haven't heard that about the neighbor's house. Not Ron. Yeah, I have heard that. Yes, I have heard that. You're right. And you're correct. And it didn't match in 2017. And they, yes, I have heard that. And it, I haven't seen where there's any type of reports on that, but that will be brought out in court if that is true. But I had heard those rumors that they were looking for a firearm, and which brings up the point that all that information is out there, and no steps were taken by Richard Allen to dispose of. He knew they were looking for a gun, and he chose not to dispose of it, which is interesting.
Okay, let's see here.
Because I'm sure the rumors within the community are just as wide and well known as what there are out here in the web sleuth world. All right, guys. Well, like I say, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Give it a thumbs up, share it, like it, and subscribe. And we appreciate it. And let's see, when's our next Saturday? And hopefully we'll have some interesting information coming up. And I'm still working on a lot of different things. And we appreciate your support. We couldn't do this without y'all. We thank the mods and everyone in chat in our community. Absolutely unreal. Awesome for y'all. give us your support. We appreciate it so much. Y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
Love y'all.